TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no rain with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop. Come on, baby, higher. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop.
Welcome, everybody. My name is Frankie.
And I'm Rhyan Shanklin.
And this is Balls and Bowties. We are here. We're going to talk a lot about football. Once basketball season gets underway, of course, we'll talk about basketball. But this is prime football season. We can't escape any of college football or NFL. We'd like to thank our sponsors, WagerWire. If you have not downloaded the app, go ahead and go down to your App Store or Google Play and download the app. And it makes you a superior sports bettor because you put all your apps together and you can track your bets a lot easier. Viva Tequila Seltzer, if you have not tried their seltzers, then you're missing out. Coconut is their new flavor. And like we say, we are cuckoo coconuts. So go try out their new flavor wherever you get your adult beverages. And Atlantic Steaks and Seafood, who has been our new sponsor now. They do all kind of packaging. And like we talked about yesterday, they sent it to Jeff 2 days ago, and it was still, the dry ice was still, steaming. So no worries about the packages becoming damaged or your food being not as quality as if you from a long distance. We're going to start this week with college football. It has been a whirlwind between these two, college football and NFL.
Man,
and absolutely crazy stuff. College football last week, we saw a couple ranked matchups. We're going to talk about those real quick before we get into this week's matchups. But we looked at Oklahoma State and Utah. That game was interesting. I mean, it felt like that was probably the one that decided the Big 12 for a lot of teams, and they fall out. They missed that. Utah wins that game by 3. Oklahoma State just did not play the way they needed to win that game. Yes, they were dominant in certain aspects, but it still felt like Ollie Gordon wasn't that guy that we thought he could be. He just, for somebody who's supposed to be a Heisman guy, he was not. Bowman threw 2 picks, didn't look great. And even with Wilson struggling for Utah, they still came out and played super well and won that game, which will take a huge leap for them winning the Big 12. Tennessee, Oklahoma. Oklahoma got his first taste of SEC football, and they got hit hard. One thing that I think was very surprising is when we look at the SEC football, we usually see high-scoring games. First one to 50 wins the game.
Yeah.
And what we saw here was Tennessee put their money on their defense and said, you're going to have to score against us to beat us. They did put up 25, which by no means is bad. But they only gave up 15 points, and that's really how you win the games for Tennessee now. They have the offensive stars, but they're going to rely on their defense because of how many they got rid of, like Joe Milton and all that. So a huge game for them in Tennessee. Texas, we had to bring them up, even though they played at UL Monroe. Archie Manning played his first start with Quentin Ewers out, who should be back next week, but maybe not. Maybe Archie gets another start.
He's making a big push for QB1.
Man, and he did look pretty good. He did have 2 picks, not as stellar as he had the performance before, but still 258 yards, and of course blew in the running game. It was 3 touchdowns and 158 rushing yards. Can't count him out. And then that Friday night game, we saw Illinois and Nebraska. The Cornhuskers blow it again.
Man,
it was their first, real test that you wouldn't be like, okay, if they win this game, they're real.
Yeah.
And they have They lost a game there at the end, and now Illinois gets into another game this week, and they're going to be tested with Penn State. So let's get into this week's kind of football. What kind of matchups are you looking at?
Matchups this week, we're looking at number 20, Oklahoma State versus 23, K-State. Key players to watch this week, Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens, Brennan Mott, all for Kansas State. And then for Oklahoma State, we got Alan Bowman, Ollie Gordon, and Trey Rucker.
This game will be interesting. We see Avery Johnson, who was a 5-star coming out and as freshman year, and we haven't really seen him throw the ball too much, to be honest. 95 pass attempts in 4 games, which sounds like a lot, but for a K-State team that used to be pretty pass heavy, now it seems like they're running a lot of RPOs, and he's not really getting the down the field shots. But this game is going to come down to the run game, like Giddens and Gordon. Those 2 guys are just unstoppable.
Yeah, definitely. Just even compared to last year when they were playing that got them to that championship game was pass heavy offense with a sprinkle of run in there. But it's definitely different this year, so we'll see how that goes. But far as what needs to happen to win, what do you think for Oklahoma State?
Oklahoma State, man, you got to get Ollie Gordon going, right? We talked about last week. He had 42 rushing yards on 11 attempts.
Yeah.
He's not getting the touches he needs, but he's a Heisman guy. When he does get touches, he's got to explode. The offensive coordinator's got to put him in positions to make those explosive plays, but he's also got to execute when he does get those chances.
Right. I'm going to talk for K-State. I think K-State's got to run the ball, but defensively they also have to stop Ollie Gordon running the ball. K-State's defensive front is a little shaky, so Ollie Gordon might get off to a hot start this week. But if the secondary can at least slow him down and don't let him get to that second year, I think they may stand a chance. So, prediction.
Yeah, it's a 4.5-point spread here for Kansas State, but I'm going to take Oklahoma State. I think Ollie Gordon has that Heisman-type game and, shows the scouts that I'm still the number 1 back coming into this year.
Right.
What about you?
I also had Oklahoma State. I just don't see them. I see it being a close game, but I don't see Ollie Gordon having a poor week as he did last week, like you were saying earlier. So I see this as a bounce back week for him. And I just think he's going to absolutely bruise that secondary. So, but moving on to another game, we got number 15 Louisville versus number 16 Notre Dame. Key players to watch for Notre Dame side, we got Jeremiah Love coming off a spectacular week, and then we got Riley Leonard looking sharp as ever. And then for Louisville, we have Jack Kiesmer and Tramel Logan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Notre Dame, obviously, we know they lost that game versus Northern Illinois. And even last week, they came out pretty, stale. It felt like Riley Leonard hasn't been the quarterback that we've seen at Duke. We saw the success they've had with transfer quarterbacks in Sam Hartman last year.
Yeah.
And they kind of expected that same thing with Leonard, but he's got 1 passing touchdown and 2 interceptions. I mean, he is not throwing the ball the way we know he can.
Yeah.
Not that Notre Dame has a whole lot of weapons other than Love around him, but he's got to get going for him to win this game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And even just coming from Duke, he didn't have a huge number of receiving weapons there. He just had to make do. So not really sure what the issue is. I understand they're running the ball fairly well, but when it comes to passing the ball, it's just not there. But what do you think needs to happen for the win this week?
Yeah, I think for Louisville, they have to get Shao going, their quarterback. He's got 8 touchdowns, and they don't really have a super consistent running game. Brown is their number 1 running game with 173 yards, and that's not a whole lot, obviously, 4 games of the year. So they got to have to be effective in the pass game. And we know that Notre Dame defense, what we saw in the beginning of the year versus Texas A&M, they can stop teams.
Absolutely.
So we're probably going to see a lot of those short routes, the drags, the slants, and maybe a slight play action, right? Because you can't rely all the way on the pass game. You have to get Notre Dame at least off their feet.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then for me, Notre Dame, ground and pound. Jeremiah Love, great running back. And as we were just talking about, Riley Leonard is currently struggling. So I think they should rely heavy on the run game this week. But, like you were saying with Louisville, I think they may want to open it up to some play action, just getting Riley Leonard out of the pocket, Could be something with the O-line, just not protecting him. He's not seeing the field as much or as well. But yeah, offensively, that's what I feel they need to do. Defensively, QB containment, pressure him, and just don't let him get comfortable. So, like you said, like those short routes are going to open up. Don't let him have enough time to see the field well.
Yeah.
But I have Notre Dame winning this game. I feel they're going to come out, run heavy, and they're just not going to look back after that. What do you have?
I think I'm going to take Louisville here. It's another 4.5-point spread favoring Notre Dame. But I just feel like what we've seen in the last 2 weeks, they lost versus Northern Illinois, and they came out super stale the next week. I feel like there's just not enough talent on this team. I don't think it's a thing of like, I mean, that coach is the most hyped coach we've all seen. I mean, he comes out the locker room looking like a linebacker.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they have the energy, and I just don't feel like that's the problem. I think the talent's just not there, and they're not putting it together. So I think Louisville surprises them and probably knocks Notre Dame out of their playoff chances.
That is a very good point there. But moving on, biggest game of the week, number 2 Georgia and number 4 Alabama. We got Carson Beck, CJ Allen, and Raylan Wilson all on the Georgia side. Then we got Jalen Milroe, Ryan Williams, Jahad Campbell, and Q Robinson. Your thoughts on this game?
Man, this is probably the game of the year, probably Georgia versus Alabama. If you would have given this to me 2 years ago, I would have been even more happier.
Oh, yeah.
But we still can't complain. Number 2 versus number 4 team in the nation. It doesn't get better than this. And I'm kind of surprised by the 2.5-point spread here. Not that obviously these are 2 of the best teams in the nations.
Yeah.
But I think what we've seen out of Georgia is a more consistent play. Where we see Alabama's high flying, they can really get going and need to, but we haven't seen them consistently do it, game in and again out and been like, and it feels like Georgia's, they know they're going to win every time. They're not even worried. They're just in and out. And Alabama's celebrating every game like it's the national championship.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot to watch, but what do you got for like these, what should Alabama really be watching for to make sure they execute well?
For Bama, honestly, they want to keep Carson Beck in the pocket because in my opinion, he's more of a threat when he is outside the pocket because he's dangerous with his legs, but he can throw on the run as well. So honestly, they need to keep him contained, and then honestly, just don't let the receivers get going. They have a decent run game, but Carson Beck thrives off of pushing the ball downfield with passing the ball. But yeah, that's why I feel defensively. But offensively, I feel like Bama hasn't beat. Ryan Williams, 17-year-old freshman, but he is wreaking havoc. He's going to be a hard guy to stop. He's fast. His routes are clean. He's got a really good route tree. But then you also have to look at the quarterback. You're looking at a bigger Lamar Jackson in the sense with Jalen Milroe. But we have to see how they do, like you said, as far as being consistent. All their games have been blowout games, so this is going to be a dogfight game. But yeah, what do you have on Georgia?
Man, the one thing I found interesting is that Jalen Milroe has less passing attempts than Carson Beck has passing completions. Because Alabama scores so fast that we know that they can, they're going to score so fast they don't even have time to get the plays in. You know what I mean? Their offense is always off the field because they're scoring, which is going to be a big part for Georgia. They're going to have to contain big plays. We haven't seen Alabama really draw out a huge long drive because nobody can make them do that.
Yeah.
And maybe that when we get there and we see that Alabama's 16, 17 plays in, they can't produce after that. So that's going to be the key for their defense. Make Alabama do the short plays over and over again because we haven't seen them do it all year. And last year they struggled with that, to be honest. And I'm obviously going to have to contain Jalen Milroe. His legs are he's absolutely, he's more probably a problem on the ground than he is as throwing.
Absolutely.
Especially being at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, Carson Beck is a dangerous guy. But I think your play action is going to be your most important. Etienne has 2 weeks under his belt. Obviously, he was suspended that first week, couldn't play. He's had 79 to 78 yards in the 2 games he's played. So Etienne, if they get him going and they have that threat if they can run the ball, and Beck gets out of the pocket, it's going to be hard for Alabama to stop that Georgia offense. So I don't know. Who do you got on this one?
Me personally, I'm taking Georgia. They just came out of a dogfight game with Kentucky. And like you were just saying, they've got to be consistent. And we haven't seen Bama play a consistent game, especially with a team that will drag them through the mud. So it's honestly going to come down to that consistency that I feel like Georgia just has over Alabama at this point. But who do you have?
Yeah, I've been going back and forth all the way up until, we started the stream. I think Alabama's high-flying offense could really get going, and it's going to be hard to stop if Georgia lets them get going early. And I think that Alabama coach has been more impressive than everybody thought he would be following the Nick Saban era.
Absolutely.
But I think Georgia is just too disciplined to lose this game. I mean, we've seen Kirby Smart. I mean, his whole thing is, perfection, perfection, perfection. And they're going to contain Alabama from making big plays and force them to play this more, professional football where you have to ground and pound, you have to earn every yard.
More traditional.
Yeah, and I think Alabama just can't do that. They're too high flying, and we're not going to be able to keep up with that 5 yard kind of game. So I'll give Georgia on this one.
All right. Moving on to our last game for college football, we got number 19 Illinois versus number 9 Penn State. And then for these guys, for Illinois, we're looking at Luke Altmaier, Pat Bryant, and Xavier Scott. And then for Penn State, we're looking at Drew Aller, Nicholas Singleton, and Zakee Wheatley. Your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, we saw Illinois have another tough matchup. It feels like they've played really tough matchups all the way. Kansas was a game they won, even though Kansas has not been good. That's still a team that you're not going to, count as a bye week. You're not going to come into it like not fully prepared. You're going to be fully prepared for that landslide Kansas team. And then they faced Nebraska, and now they got Penn State. Like every week is a test for Illinois. I'm assuming that Big Ten, they've had more matchups coming.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They still haven't even touched Ohio State yet. So
them and Michigan are probably somewhere around that window.
Yeah.
Man, I think Penn State's offense with their new offensive coordinator is one of the most dangerous offenses we've seen. Drew Aller, kind of his thing last year was he couldn't push the ball down the field.
Yeah.
And that was his biggest complaint along with the fans and analysts. And now they have a coordinator where once every 5 plays, they're telling him, take the shot. He's only had 1 pick, 8 touchdowns and 1 pick. So I think that's very similar play styles, more than people think. Illinois wants to push the ball down the field.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Even though they can drag it out like they did versus Kansas, they want to push the ball down the field. So this is going to be a really high-flying 1st to 40 wins kind of game.
Absolutely, yeah. I see Illinois being one of those bracket buster teams, just one of those teams that are going to knock like a team like Penn State out of the college football playoffs. The way that they've been playing against these big-time teams and just the amount of grit and determination that they have, even if they don't win the game, just to bruise you and hurt you for next week. I definitely feel like this is going to be a nail-biter game, but I have Illinois winning. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to not take Penn State. I think Penn State wins it. I think it's going to be a lot closer than this spread gives it at 17.5, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
I think Illinois playing those teams that they have played, they're going to come into the game prepared, knowing what it's like to play a big team. Penn State's played nobody. Let's be real. West Virginia in the first week. West Virginia's not great.
Yeah.
And yeah, they did win by a lot, but at the same time, when you haven't played competition like Illinois, it's going to come in and hit you pretty hard in the first. And they're going to have to respond. That's what it is. How fast can they respond to win this game? And if it doesn't come till the third or fourth quarter, they lose the game. But I think with their high-flying offense and, they were second last year in the college football on third downs, like that's going to be their key. Their defense on third downs and their offense making those big plays. And I think Penn State pulls it out. We're going to commercial break here, and then we'll be talking about NFL when we come back.
TPCSI fans, you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all your sports books and track all your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You could also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as it's the best account on the platform. Head to App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire and download the app.
All right, we are back. It is time for NFL. Ryan, why don't you give us the NFL recap?
All right, NFL recap. We had Chiefs versus Falcons. Quick thoughts. Chiefs will not make it to the Super Bowl if they cannot be consistent offensively and if they cannot get Travis Kelce the ball. It's been 3 games so far. He has not reached over 40 yards in 1 game. And they've been sneaking away with every win, whether it be a field goal, last-minute touchdown. And a lot of people like to say the refs help them out. Whether that may be the case or not, they're still winning the games. But, yeah, if they want to be that team to three-peat, they have to step it up. They have to get the veteran guys that have helped them win the championships. They've got to get them the ball. Second game, Cowboys-Ravens. Ravens are not a Super Bowl contending team. They're not consistent. They have one of the best rosters depth-wise in the NFL, but they just cannot get it done. Cowboys are going to be one of those bracket buster teams when it comes to playoff time. I don't see them getting very far in the playoffs just because they are still way too inconsistent, and they just need to fix some things on both sides of the ball. In the last game, the Vikings and the Texans, as we saw, C.J. Stroud just really struggled, and that Vikings defense just had a field day. And it's kind of hard to bounce back year 2 with those same expectations, but even higher. So as we're seeing right now, he's just going through a little rough patch, but I do think that they will make the push. They're still not completely ready to make that year 2 playoff leap, but they are definitely building.
All right, NFL Week 4 coming up. We're going to start on Thursday night, as always. Cowboys-Giants, big NFC East game. We've seen the Cowboys are 1-2. They have a must-win situation, especially with the Eagles pulling one out against the Saints this weekend. Obviously, guys to watch, Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Trevon Diggs. Those guys are key playmakers. Even Micah Parsons, I don't know how I forgot about him.
Man,
those guys are their key playmakers. We haven't seen them really get going, which is why we see them falling in these games.
Yeah.
They're going to have to be key for the Giants. I mean, we have Daniel Jones going to have to play well, get the ball to Neighbors, get it out. And then defensively, that D-line, who has not really performed as they expected, especially in Hard Knocks, is what we've seen. Brian Burns hasn't made it too much of an X factor. Kayvon Thibodeau, Dexter Lawrence. So what do you got on this game?
Cowboys, they really just need to step it up. They need to be consistent within their offense. If they're going to have chunk plays, they need to be consistent chunk plays. And if they're going to go run game and get a few yards of pop here and there, they got to be consistent in that. It's always 4 or 5 yards, and then they take a sack or they take a tackle for loss. So offensively, consistency. And then defense. Right now, the Giants, they're looking hot because they finally found Malik Neighbors. So I say pass game. Pass game is where the Cowboys need to live off of defensively. I think Trevon Diggs is going to have a field day with Malik Neighbors. He's definitely going to get in his head. So that'll be an exciting to watch. What do you have for the Giants, though?
Man, we've seen the Giants struggle offensively and then do well offensively, and a lot of that does come down to their O-line and Daniel Jones. We've seen Singletary, who was somebody that kind of has fed the ball a lot in his career, especially at the Texans at the end there. He doesn't probably have the touches he probably should get to control this offense, but at the same time, the offense is not on the field very long because they just can't move the ball at all. And then defensively, like I talked about, they are not performing the way we expected, especially that D-line. They lost their safety and Xavier McKinney in a big way. So they have to have that D-line play well to protect their secondary, especially against a guy like CeeDee Lamb, who can take the top off your defense if you give him 4 seconds.
Absolutely.
So who do you got winning this game Thursday night, primetime?
It's kind of hard because both teams are too inconsistent for me. I want to say the Cowboys, but I'm going to go with the underdog and the Giants here. Just got a strange feeling. Can't really explain it. Even though I think Trayvon Diggs is going to have a field day with Malik Neighbors, I think the game is going to come down to Malik Neighbors making a game-winning catch that he failed to make when they played Washington. I think, yes, he had a redemption week last week, but I think he's going to completely redeem himself from that moment, and he's going to make that big catch for them this week.
Yeah, I would say that this is going to be an interesting matchup, right? Because Dallas has no running game at all. They have their leading rusher is 88 yards with Dallas, and you can't have that happen in the NFL. Which makes it interesting because that New York defense, one who doesn't blitz a whole lot, actually the least in the NFL coming into this week, they can sit back and have 4 guys, their main 4 guys rush, and then sit in coverage and hope CeeDee Lamb doesn't take the top off of them. They play 3 guys back.
Absolutely.
But I think Dallas has too much star power to lose a divisional game and fall to 1-3.
Yeah.
Especially with the Eagles being 2-1, they have to win this game. If they don't win this game, they fall, pretty far, and they're going to have to make up a lot of ground just to make the playoffs, let alone to get to the division. So this is going to be a super important game for the Cowboys and a statement game for the Giants. But I think the Cowboys have to win. There's no way they come out of this with a loss. We're going to move on, though. We're going to talk about the Chiefs. As always, the Super Bowl 2-time repeating champions. Chiefs face the Chargers. What do you think about all this Chargers situations going on?
I really don't know what to think about it completely. We don't know if Justin Herbert's going to play next week. We saw the backup quarterback went down last night. And honestly, they're struggling both sides of the ball. And it's really just injuries. Offensively, they're not consistent, but that can be credited to the injuries. And then defensively, besides McConkey, they have nothing.
Yeah, I think we saw Derwin James get suspended again last night. Bosa gets hurt last week. So their 2 main star players on defense are out when it comes to the biggest week for them on their schedule. Like any game at the Chiefs, especially in Los Angeles, you don't have to deal with that Chiefs crowd.
Absolutely.
They needed one here to sneak away, and would have been a huge win to take them to 3-1. But we probably don't see that happening. Now, the big thing for the Chargers, right? We know Jim Harbaugh wants to run the ball.
Yeah.
And he's got 2 running backs who have been super successful this year, Jacob Dobbs and Gus Edwards doing so. Mm-hmm. Can they continue the success and somehow pull off an upset without a quarterback?
No. That's easy answered because you got Chris Jones on one end, George Karlaftis on the other. You got Nick Bolton sitting right over the top. So no matter where he goes, if he wants to go outside left, outside right, you have nowhere to go. And then if you try to go anywhere up the middle, you're going to be sat right on your butt by Nick Bolton. Yeah. And then they have no quarterback, so the pass game is going to be non-existent. And even if it was, McDuffie's holding that down. So,
yeah, this to me is going to be a no-brainer. The real telltale sign is can Mahomes and Kelsey get going, right? This is the game to do it. They don't have their players healthy. You have to get going.
Absolutely.
And if they don't, it's not that this game is important in like a win or loss. They're going to win either way. But you're going to have a lot harder matchups continuing to go. Mm-hmm. So the Chiefs got to figure it out right now while they can have basically a bye week with
pretty much
a third-string quarterback no weapons, and no defense. So can the Chiefs get going enough to get Kelsey going? What's your expectations for Kelsey in this week?
I think this is the week that Kelsey hits over on that 40-yard receiving yard marker. Honestly, just because, like you were just saying, Bosa's down, and their secondary is very soft right now. So I think this is going to be that target practice week for Kelsey, just for him and Mahomes to get back on that same dynamic duo connection that they were once on before. But honestly, this is going to be a week where I feel like they put in a lot of the second string guys. And I hope it happens, just so like those backup guys are getting the reps that they need for further on down the line because the Chiefs' schedule doesn't get any easier. So,
All right, we're going to go to commercial break real quick. We'll be right back to finish the NFL.
2,000 years long, we will never settle. Hard days, no rain with a heavy metal. No time, no fail, won't stop here. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop. Come on, baby, higher. Like a torch to a flame when it burns hot. We won't stop.
Viva Tequila Seltzers, one of our sponsors. We want to thank them for their continued support of our stream. We want to apologize. We didn't realize until just now that our names were backwards, and it looks like they still might be backwards. So we'll figure it out for next week.
yeah.
We're going to continue the NFL, though. Sunday night football, Bills versus Ravens. Big week for the Ravens and the Bills, who hope to continue their success to 4-0.
Yeah.
What do you see for this matchup?
I see a heavy dose of the run game from the Ravens. Obviously, you got Lamar, and then you got the biggest and baddest back in the league with Henry. But I see a heavy dose of the run game from the Ravens, but I see a heavy dose of the pass. Well, I don't see a heavy dose of the pass game, but I see a decent dose of the pass game with the Bills. Keon Coleman finally scored his first touchdown the other night. So I know he's feeling good off of that, but he is their main target right now. He's their receiver one, and he is doing receiver one things. But yeah, I see a heavy dose of run with the Ravens. I see a decent amount of pass with the Bills. But yeah.
Yeah, this game is going to be very telling. The Bills with two key pieces that are questionable with Teron Johnson and Terrell Bernard, who have not played the last two games. If those guys get back, that's going to be a big difference for their defense, especially coming into a week where you're going to have to face, like you said, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
We saw the success for the first time this year, really, in the passing game for the Bills.
Yes.
And that was the key part last night when they beat the top off the Jaguars, which had been their kryptonite the last couple of years. 4 touchdowns in the first half for Josh Allen, and everybody got involved, which is what we wanted to see. And we did kind of see, we saw a lot of spreading out the ball before, but not to the extent of yards that we got.
Yeah.
He just hadn't had the passing yards that he did last night, and all of a sudden he figured it out. How much does that make a difference coming to this game, especially knowing you can still use James Cook and Josh Allen in the rushing game?
It makes a huge difference because now it makes the Ravens defense spread out more. So it opens up the run game. Honestly, because now they're not just going to double down on Keon Coleman. They have to be able to go man up or go zone, whichever one they decide. But it's going to be harder for them to just zone in on one target and be able to contain Josh Allen in the pocket to only have him to be able to target one side of the field. So it's definitely going to be huge for them. It's going to be huge for the Bills because it'll be easy pickings for them offensively, whether or not to run or pass the ball. So,
yeah, like you said, that Baltimore is going to have to pretty much lock up every guy.
Yeah.
I mean, every guy on that defense is going to have to do their job well to win the game. Now they have so much threat on the offense, which we thought we wouldn't have to see really with that Diggs gone. We kind of thought they'd have a lack of threats.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing there's no shortage of threats for the Bills, which plays a much bigger difference. But on the other hand, we saw Baltimore against the Cowboys defense, which was last year and 2 years ago, even the top defense in the league, one of the top 5 at least, get 6 yards a carry against Dallas Cowboys. That has to play a factor, right, with Derrick Henry and Lamar.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's going to be hard to stop Derrick when he gets into that second gear, which he hits very quick off the line. So far as the Bills go, it's going to be hard for them to stop. I don't see them stopping the run game too much just because of the severity of injuries. So you don't have those big names over the top just stopping him from reaching that second level. The only one you have right now that is somewhat healthy is Von Miller. So
I would say that will be the key, especially for the Bills. They want to win this game, right? We all know the rushing game is good. But if you allow them to rush the ball for 6 yards a carry, it's going to be, a long night.
yeah,
So they're going to have to at least slow them down and then make them a non-threat in the passing game. You know what I mean? Like they're going to try to play up play action probably a little bit to try to get Jay Flowers maybe a ball or Isaiah Likely. And you can't allow that to happen.
Absolutely. I mean, even with that, even if they are able to successfully slow down the pass game, you still have the option. You have an RPO, but you also have Zay Flowers on jet sweep. We've seen it before, and it gets them going early. It gets them going fast. So I think that's also the other option that they have to worry about, which to me, I think is going to sink the defense in at least once or twice a game to hit the long ball. So.
Yep, I got the Bills on this one. I am a Buffalo Bills fan, so I'm not going to pick against my team. Who do you got on this one?
I am also going to go with you with Buffalo this week. They're coming off of a monster week, so they're feeling good. But also the Ravens are coming off of a close win game. But I honestly just don't see the Bills losing this game, even with the injuries that they have on the defensive end. I still think they are going to be able to get it done. It will definitely be a task. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's definitely going to be within at least one score or a field goal, just because they're missing those key pieces on defense. But I think they will be able to hold. I think they'll be able to hold long term.
Yeah. A couple guys I want to talk about for this last week. Cincinnati falls to 0-3 versus a Washington team. We thought, not that they're going to kill them. We probably all knew it was going to be close because they hadn't already won a game.
Yeah.
But we didn't expect them to drop the game, especially by the margin they did.
Absolutely. And we didn't expect Jaden Daniels to perform the way he did. 21 for 23 completions.
Yeah, he jumps to the number one spot for offense rookie odds. And to what surprise, I mean, nobody else had performed like he had. But we see that the AFC North specifically is struggling. We see a lot of big teams struggling, but that's the big one. Cincinnati falls to 0-3. Baltimore's 1-2. Cleveland's 1-2.
Yeah.
We thought that was going to be the toughest division. They haven't even played divisional games yet.
Absolutely.
They haven't beat up on each other yet, and they're already losing. Well, who falls out of the playoffs in that division? Because obviously you're not going to have all four of those teams make it, and like maybe we expected that they all could.
Yeah. Right now, I see Cincinnati falling off. They're having issues, honestly, in the locker room issues. You could see early at the start of the season with Jamar Chase sitting out on that contract. But then you also have on the field issues with Joe Burrow, questioning whether or not he is still capable of playing, not under pressure, but playing with a potential injury. As people are thinking, but is he playing through an injury right now? I don't know. But he is not the same Joe Burrow we are used to seeing. He's playing very timid.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously he was injured, so that plays a big factor. But he's playing almost as if he's scared that he makes one little movement and it's done.
Yeah.
So,
and the other one I want to talk about, Caleb Williams, the first overall pick. We see him. He does struggle. He does two pass interceptions, but we see the yards finally break out. That's what we're waiting for. We all know the progress of a quarterback throughout the season starts with the yards. They're still going to struggle with efficiency, but then they get the pass touchdowns and it comes efficiently. What does that mean for him and the Bears moving forward?
For him, that is just another boost of confidence for him. Because like we were just saying, he was inconsistent. You see a game with couple hundred passing yards, and he has high confidence, but then it drops right back down when he plays a more defensively sound team. But I think for him is a day by day thing, and week by week, just a confidence builder. This was definitely a good week for him to build upon. And then for the Bears, this is a building block for them. Because I don't believe they will make the playoffs this year, but this is going to be a building block year for them to see what they have and see what they have to work with, so they can know what they need to go out and get for next year.
Yeah, and it's starting to prove them right with that Justin Fields system. The Steelers are 3-0, but Fields has not been the reason they're 3-0. We all know that defense.
That defense is still
lights out.
Yeah.
We want to thank you all for joining us. Like we said, we want to apologize for the technical difficulties. We'll get that figured out. Like I said, I'm Noah.
I'm Ryan.
And this is Balls and Bowties podcast. We'll see you next week. Tomorrow morning is Brady, Kannon, and Tyler Wyatt talking golf, college football, and NFL. So stay tuned tomorrow morning. Have a great night.